Well, hello there. Welcome to day 102 of A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. Now that I have cleared the hurdle that is the BAFTA coverage that I did yesterday, you can check that out as a bonus audio only video. And I now have a better sense of the major contenders, the winners of the BAFTA, and of course, as we make our way to the Oscars now, which films really are the big heavyweights. One of which, of course, is tonight's film, which is Sound of Metal. As I said when I watched Mogul Mowgli, the problem that I had with that film and putting it alongside this one is they are they're very distinct. They have very particular identities, and yet the parallels between these films are very apparent, and consequently one would significantly diminish the other. Now, I was already aware that Sound of Metal had quite a prominent following and was already being sort of prepped, and unfortunately Mogul Mowgli, which had one nomination for BAFTA and no Oscar nominations, this is very much a case of a film falling by the wayside because there's just too many similarities, primarily being with Riz Ahmed as their leads. But like I say, this does have this very distinct identity where Mogul Mowgli was about the hip-hop scene and consequently about someone who's suffering from a muscular deterioration. This is about someone who is in the metal scene and a very immediate and apparent disability due to hearing loss. And this film is... I can completely understand why people are talking about this film the way they are. This is Darius Marder's... though he's edited and written a number of films, this is his fictional directorial debut, with one documentary under his name, but this is his first fiction feature debut film. And there is, and he comes from a background in editing, and there's something about this that really wants to explore the ideas of how to present through the audio medium and through sort of perspective, the experience of someone who is an adult who develops a disability quite suddenly, and how that changes their life. Now, this does feed back to me as a personal experience. So of course I relate to that to some degree as someone who has a visual disability and who wasn't born with it. And having lost significant amount of my sight quite young, I think there is something to be said about being born with a disability, losing it when you're still young, and losing it at a later life, or in later life, because though I did adapt to my change in lifestyle, I often wonder and consider the experience of losing a sense at a later stage in your life, and what that means to you as a person, and how that completely changes your experience, and how it completely derails but also redirects your what's important to you, your necessities, I suppose, your priorities. Sorry, redirect your priorities. So Riz Ahmed, as I say, is a metal drummer. Suddenly loses most. It's about 75% of his hearing, and though he is told that he can get an implant, that is going to cost him a huge amount of money, but also that he needs to accept the fact that his hearing will not be as it was. That it won't repair the damage that has been done. And what I primarily like about this film is the fact that with a lot of films where it comes to disability or impairment or health deterioration, in the case of Mogul Mowgli, is a narrative tends to want to focus on that. Most features will completely attach to that experience and telling the story of that. And there's nothing wrong with that in itself, but what I like about this film is it entertains the fact that this is a person who had a life before and had issues before. For Ruben, Riz Ahmed's character, our lead, he is a recovering substance abuser, and what I like about the film is the fact that it continues to explore the fact that this is someone who had other priorities in their life and other issues. His relationship with his band partner and girlfriend Lou, played by Olivia Cook, is really important to him, and they live in a van and travel playing metal, and that was a really important thing to them. But because of what's happened to him, it all of a sudden it changes what he has to deal with. But those things don't go away. He still has substance problems. He very obviously has issues of anxiety, and an inability to relax or to find that wellness, that mental stability, that stillness, as the film states. And the idea of the film is the fact that, okay, on the one hand, you've got to come to terms with your disability. You've got to learn to find a way to just live with this radical change. But on the other, your life there are still expectations in your life, and you have to sort of deal with what happens to those elements and what happens to your relationships. As I say, there's a lot of parallels between this and Mogul Mowgli in that respect, because it initially is about someone who is a major musician who's that's their life. It then becomes about trauma and recovery, and what change that will be to you as a person, will make to you. And then it becomes about identity and relationships. In Mogul Mowgli's case, it was about family and identity through Pakistani heritage, whereas in this case, it's specifically about finding a new community in the deaf community. In this case, with this sort of rehabilitation / commune that he is enrolled in, that's supposed to help him recover from his to learn to live with his disability and recover from the trauma of losing a sense, but also he learns to live amongst other deaf people and learns to communicate. Primarily, this community is led by a guy who's played by Paul Racy, who is, though not deaf himself, can speak or communicate through ASL, American Sign Language, and there is something about this issue. There's a divide. There is a big issue, which is the commune is very much about not trying to overcome your disability, but accepting that it is a part of who you are, and you are part of a community of people who are just living with, with this disability to such a degree that they try to make it not an irrelevance, but it's not something that they're constantly having to battle. Inside the community, they are all either almost completely or completely deaf, and to be part of the community, you have to embrace that, and that's really the challenge for our lead, for Ruben. But then, as I say, and I'm aware that this is a conflict in real world deaf communities, where it's, on the one hand, they want to create this internal system of security and reliability and community where, but on the other, they are it does create an isolation, quite an isolationist attitude, where, in the case of the film, they say, look, when you're in this community, you don't communicate without, whilst you're still, while you agree to be here and whilst you're still learning to adapt, you don't communicate with the outside world, you don't come and go as you please, you are part of this community. And that's a difficult thing. It's very difficult to consider that, because on the one hand, people deserve to be able to live a rounded life, both, with people of similar to them and with similar disabilities, but on the other hand, they shouldn't be separated from the outside world. They should be able to be autonomous. But on the other, there is that case where it's like, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps communities like this only function because that's how they've been able to sort of build themselves. I sincerely don't know, but it is a conflict, and that's the thing, and that's the issue for our lead, is the fact that he has one foot in his life that was, and the other in starting to develop a life in this community, and there is this possibility of him having his hearing, or at least an implant which will help improve his hearing. And of course, he takes that as meaning his hearing will be completely restored. Now, in real money, we should all be aware that's not possible. That an implant wouldn't just repair your hearing, but as I say, and it's made very clear early on by one of the doctors, that the hearing that he has lost is gone, and that the implant can only help aid him, but it won't restore it. And so he's got that on his mind as well, and unfortunately that creates that division for him about whether he should get the implant and try to put his life back as was, or just accept. And the film doesn't say one is good over the other, that this character is conflicted over it, and it's and with his substance problem, or his substance recovery, he isn't someone who necessarily copes with these things very well. And again, Riz Ahmed gives a fantastic performance. Genuinely gives a really, there is, as I said with Mogul Mowgli, there's a musicality to him, and of course, coming from a musical background, he understands how to integrate rhythm and music into what would be a fairly straight. You could play this without, the music really. It could just be one aspect of a character, but he knows how to make the music part of who he is, and part of his performance. There's a certain rhythm to him. Interestingly enough, if you compare the two, with Mogul Mowgli, it's much more about, as is the case with hip hop, it's much more about poetry and lyricism in relation to other genres of music, and integrating different styles with the linguistics of hip hop. in this case, it's very much about, of course, drumming, but also it's about rhythm through beat and through vibration. And of course, with the hearing and the way that his hearing is portrayed, you have that sense of rhythm and vibration that you're constantly presented with. Unfortunately, I do think this is a film that is as I've said numerous times now, some films are built for the cinema, are built for the theatrical experience. And this is a film that actually is, but not, well, not for the usual reasons. In this case, I think the way that the soundscape is built for the film, though we can appreciate it watching it from home, I think having the full surround sound theatrical presentation would enhance the audio quality of the film, and I think that is a shame that we didn't get an opportunity to see it in that way. But yeah, like I say, a musicality of rhythm to it, and I think again Riz Ahmed really does know how to bring that. In terms of where we are, I mean, as was the case, it won Best Sound and Best Editing, and quite rightly, I think, in both those cases. Best Editing, I'm not entirely sure about, but I think Best Sound, it's without question. Best Editing, it's... I think the editing, of course, helps us experience the sound, and I think there are elements of editing with this that are excellent, but there were some pretty good contenders in that category as well. With the Oscars, it's been nominated for Best Picture, Lead Actor, Supporting Actor, Original Screenplay, Editing and Sound. And of course, it's almost a given, it will win sound. It will win sound. There is, there are other films that have done interesting things with sound, but nowhere near as interesting as this. And I genuinely think that it would be ridiculous if another film won sound. And I do think Riz Ahmed gives a great performance. I think this is such a tough year. There have been other years where I think he would have walked away with this with no issue, but unfortunately, I don't think he will for this one because of Judas and the Black Messiah, because of Trial of the Chicago 7, but because of there's another performance in that category that I think is going to be. There are some heavy hitters in that category, and I think I don't see Riz Ahmed winning it. And unfortunately, the same for Paul Raci. Again, he's good. I think the character's interesting, and I think the fact that they brought in an actor who had an ability to communicate through ASL, that shows, and again, someone who is in real life a recovering drink alcoholic. Unfortunate, and so I think that's interesting, but I don't think it's enough. Again, for an incredibly contentious category, there are a lot of really good supporting actor nominees this year, and I'm not seeing it for best film. I think it's an interesting film. I'm really glad I've seen it, but I don't think it's the best film of the ones I've seen, of the nominees I've seen, and I thinking about what they'll be looking for, I don't think it will get the best picture. But who's to say? That's only my opinion. It's all to play for, frankly. Yeah, I do think this is a really interesting film, and I strongly recommend watching it. Anyway, thank you for joining me. If you liked this video, please select the like and subscribe to the channel if you want more like it. Hit that little bell to get notifications for when I put new uploads. And of course now we are well over 100 videos, so there is a fair back catalogue of films to choose from. You can follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I'm always tweeting news, trailers, funny videos, and of course links to all my uploads. But yeah, we are now that we are over the BAFTAs, we are swiftly making our way to the Oscars, which I'm going to do something different, I think, than the live stream BAFTA coverage. But I'm still working that out. But we'll see, and that's only 2 weeks away, or less than 2 weeks away. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you for joining me. Take care.